I'm tired of looking at young African-American men shot in the street when they're not home, or choked, or selling free legal cigarettes. That man in Los Angeles at the sheriff's department, he waved the gun around, he never shot anybody, and they shot him, put him on the ground, and fired 30-something more bullets. I'm tired of that. I think the cameras are right. And we need to believe in the police again, and they need to believe in the community again. We saw how important good policing was to us when those people put their lives on the line in San Bernardino. And every American without regard to race was proud of them and grateful for them. It's very interesting. When I ran for president in '92, the big policing issue were the riots in LA and Rodney King. Those of you of a certain age will remember that. At the time, people said, oh, LA's got the most racist police department in the country. They all retired and go up in the mountains somewhere and join these survivalist groups, and it wasn't a pretty picture. What did they do? They organized community councils where the neighborhoods and the police that worked those neighborhoods and their superiors, if necessary, met every time there was a dispute involving violence. While Ferguson was having riots, and Baltimore was having riots, and we had that terrible controversy in New York, and all this stuff was going on, there was a little article in the newspaper one day that a young person was shot by a police officer in Los Angeles, not by the sheriff's office. That's what you saw on the camera. And there was never another article. I don't know that. And believe it or not, that's good. Because what it means is the community took care of it. Everybody knows that you carry guns around every now and then something will happen that shouldn't. Everybody knows that. But nobody wants to have systematic violence that is unaccountable for people that have no right anymore, just to their own person and their own safety. We got to deal with that. We got to deal with the fact that now you've got all these young immigrants who are known as dreamers who wonder if they're going to get to live their dreams in America or not. Or somebody's going to send them home or make them feel unwelcome while they're here. We got to deal with the fact that our fellow Americans who are Muslims are facing new stigmatism, new threats. And I just want to tell you one story, because it's really important. After that awful thing in San Bernardino, a couple days later, I was in New York. Hillary's out campaigning. I got up, picked up the newspapers, drinking my breakfast coffee, and I looked, and there's this little article in the New York Daily News, and a little picture. It looked like a piece of wood with a bullet in it. So I read the article. At a convenience store in New York City, in a modest income neighborhood, two guys had come in the day before to rob it with pistols. One guy stood and stared at the door with his gun. The other guy went to the man behind the counter and said, open that cash register and give me the money. The guy behind the counter was a Muslim immigrant from Yemen who's been here since 2002. Every month sending home money home to his wife and 4 children, every month trying to get them to live in America. So he's supporting his family, right? And he's terrified. So he opens the cash register, takes the money out, and he's about to hand it to the guy, and he just blurts out, you know, I've only had this job for a year. It's not my money, and it's sure not yours. And he reaches out and slaps at the gun hand of the guy. The gun goes off, misses him by a few seconds. And thank goodness these guys might have been criminals, but they were not dumb. They realized they had just fired a gun in the middle of the day in downtown New York. So they ran off. This man went next door, called the police, and went back and put the money up and waited for him to come. He made his report. The guy that owns the store comes and he is so overwhelmed by the guy's courage and what he did that he gives him the afternoon off. And what did he do? family. And he got out his prayer robe, he got down on his knees, and he thanked his Maker for sparing his life, and prayed that maybe now his wife and his children, now 15, 17, 19, and 21, would finally be able to join him and they could be together again. He is far more representative of most Muslims in America than those people in San Bernardino. Without their help. This war is going on over the social media and the brains of a million people. We've got to do it together. We need inclusive social policy. And to get there, we need inclusive politics. And Senator Ford talked about this, but this Supreme Court is responsible for a number of bad decisions. They make pretty good decisions until they get into politics. Then they're sort of result-oriented. They're all there talking about strict reading of the Constitution. So they did this Citizens United case, which basically says a billionaire and someone living on public assistance have the same right to express their free speech with as much of their money as they want. A curious interpretation of the First Amendment, leading to all these secret accounts and all this stuff. We ought to do something like that. But worse than that was the voting rights decision. Just a few years after every Republican in the Senate had voted for an extension of the voting rights, and most in the House did, they said, oh, we don't need that pre-approval provision anymore, because look at all the African Americans that have been elected to office. We're getting rid of it. They knew exactly what they were doing. They opened the floodgates to all these attempts to make it hard for people to vote. Now, in a funny way, we all bear some responsibility for that. As I saw when I was out here working in 2014. What do I mean by that? We Democrats, we show up when we got presidential election. And now, culturally, after the Republicans had an advantage from like 1980 through 2000, then we had a couple elections when it was pretty even, the base vote we had. Then it shifted for us, more or less than them. Except more of us forget to vote in the midterm elections. We forget that the governors, the state legislatures, the people that draw the congressional districts, the members of the House of Representatives, the third of the Senate, they're not elected when we vote for president. So we keep trying to expand the franchise. Hillary has a wonderful bill, as was described, to make it easier to register to vote, to automatically enroll 18-year-olds. They keep trying to make the presidential elections look more like the midterms by getting more of you to stay home. This is not rocket science. They have now agreed, the Supreme Court. I'm not making this up. They have agreed to review the 50-year-old requirement of one person, one vote. It has always been that the person that determined representation, how many state legislators or whatever you got, what the number of people living in the district. Now they tell me we only want registered voters. If not that, we only want eligible voters. So if you have to represent 5,000 legal immigrants and they need help, and they go to our schools, they won't count. If you represent families with a lot of kids, like kids, they won't count. It's unbelievable. This is a big election. The next president's going to get between 1 and 3 appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court. You better pick somebody who can take those votes on and win. Why is it so tumultuous and so closed and so everything? Because of the other half of the story, not what the president said, but because most people don't feel what the president said. And I went through the troubles of immigration, the troubles that African American men are having with the criminal justice system, the unbelievable attacks on Planned Parenthood. This lady's got a shirt on there. They phoned up a film, doctored it to make it look like something it wasn't, and then got all these Republicans that promised to defund it, people phoning them out, calling them names. And there is no telling how many people every single week get health care from Planned Parenthood that couldn't get it any other place on the face of the earth. I'm proud of the work we've done to build inclusive societies. I'm proud of the progress in rights for the LGBT community. I'm proud of all of this, but I think it's a national travesty that for the first time in at least 60 years, they're not good records before then. The first time in at least 60 years, the life expectancy of middle-aged, white, working-class people without college degrees is going down. Now, if you read a report on the causes, they'll say it's first and foremost because of the epidemic of prescription drug and heroin abuse, which is sweeping across America. They say the second big cause is alcoholism, and the third big cause is suicide. And Hillary was the first person to talk about this in terms of what we could do. Well, let's spend $10 billion over the next few years and give every state and every community the mental health and treatment facility they need to get these people to Remember, I was born in Arkansas at the end of World War II, when the per capita income of my state was barely half the national average. When President Roosevelt came down to see us, the people didn't have enough, in the Depression, the people didn't have enough money to paint their houses, and they didn't want dirty houses for the president to see, so everybody got an allocation to paint enough to paint the front of their houses. And this whole room, we noticed the fronts of all the houses were painted. I get this, these are my people. All of a sudden, voting Republican now. And because they've been driven crazy by the Republicans telling them we're cultural elitists and they all watch the same news programs, and heck, they're the main beneficiaries of the health care law, they just don't know it. But it's a tragedy because they are really not dying of these things. They are dying of a broken heart. They are dying of a broken heart